Hey friend, welcome to the Halfway to Dead podcast. I'm your host, Jen Lovell. Listen, you and I have reached that age where we are done with the bullshit. We know that midlife is our chance to flip the script and experience life on our own terms. It's time to reconnect with our higher selves and reclaim our inner peace. Are you ready with an open heart and an open mind? Awesome, you're in the right place. Hop in and ride shotgun with me on this midlife spiritual journey. Hey guys, thanks for coming back. Today, our guest is Tianna Roser. She does all kinds of amazing things, but she is a Usui Reiki Master, a spiritual mentor, and a Certified Clinical Hypnotist. She specializes in Past Life Regression, quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, and Life Between Lives Regressions. She's the author of Awakening Transformation, A Beginner's Guide to Becoming Your Higher Self. And I have personally purchased many copies because I've given her book as a gift. It's a great starting point for anyone out there just starting to dip your toe in the woo-woo and you just want to get a little bit better understanding. She's also a co-host of the Beyond the Illusion podcast, and they get woo-woo over there, guys. If you want to hear some cool stuff, head over there. So Tianna helps spiritual seekers clarify their purpose and overcome obstacles so that they can stop playing small and truly embrace their authentic power as a light worker. So no worries. I'll have everything in the show notes to link to her. Don't even worry about that. We've been talking a lot in previous episodes about doing the work. Doing the work, all the work, and we can't get around it. We got to go through it, doing the work. Okay, so part of our midlife journey is part of doing this work. So what is that work? Well, today, Tianna helps us understand what the work is and how to get started. Like we dive into shadow work, healing our inner child, and a big one, forgiveness. This is all such a super important part of the journey, you guys. So let's just jump in and get to it. Hey, Tianna.
Hi.
Thanks for being here today. I'm so excited to have you here. I just have told everybody all about you and let everybody know I actually have bought many of your books and gifted them.
Oh, thank you.
To lots of people that I feel like are getting ready to start a journey, or maybe they'll put it on a shelf and someday they'll come back and be like, ooh, it's time to read that book. Okay, so I've gifted it a bunch of times. And what I love about your book, it's not a hard read. It's an easy read, you guys, for us beginners out there. It's 150-ish pages.
Mm-hmm.
It's somewhere around there, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes.
And she lays it out where it's like easy to understand. So if you're just starting to, it's called, a beginner's book. And so that's what I love about it, because it's simple. You can tab it, highlight it, and go right back to like different sections later. So this is one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on, was because you're good at explaining things to us.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Figure everything out. Okay. So I like to ask, what was your moment? Did you have a moment when your spiritual journey feels like it started, or when you felt a pull, like something's got to change? I have to change my life. Was there a pinpoint? I know you had a series of amazing things happen all throughout your life, but was there a moment that's kind of started the whole thing for you?
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was sort of the wake up of, I had spent, we spend so much of our time doing what we're supposed to be doing. And there was a whole plan that we're all kind of pushed into, do well in school, get good grades, go to college, get good grades, be involved in activities, get an internship. Your internship leads to a job. And then you're supposed to do that job for the rest of your life. But who really does that, right?
And we're like all of barely 20 years old when we're doing all this.
Well, exactly. So we don't know ourselves. We don't know ourselves. And that's the thing is you get so busy. And I think whatever stage in life people are at, it can be like this, where we're just so busy doing the thing, whether that, if somebody might be at a different stage in their life where they're just working and paying the bills and taking care of their family or whatever, but we're so busy that we don't really stop and think like, is this what I want? And who am I?
Right.
And so for me, it was like all of these things leading to where I thought I wanted to go, which would be this like corporate businesswoman. And then getting there and being like, wait, what is this? This is not feel good to me. And so there was a big wake up call of just like, oh my gosh, is this is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Like 10 years from now, am I going to be doing this 20 years from now? And my superiors or whatnot, like everyone was telling me, oh, you're doing a great job and kind of wanting to work me up that ladder. And, instead of being excited about that, that just sort of horrified because I just started to think about like, what's that going to look like and what's that going to feel like? And it felt just very not aligned. And it just woke me up to kind of like, well, what is it that I want? If it's not, which I think I've always sort of known that it's not, money is not something that drives me. And so just the idea of having X amount of dollars isn't something that pushes me. So when I thought that this corporate path was going to fulfill me in a level of, learning and achievement or personal growth, and it didn't, then it was like, well, what is that then? And so that started me on a path. And I've always been interested in, like, I'm a very vivid dreamer. I've always had a lot of dreams. And so even though I was raised an atheist, I was always really paying attention to my dreams. And so there was kind of like a segue gateway where there was a dream book that a boyfriend at that time had given me. And it turned out it was a channeled book. And it was channeled by, there was a woman in like 60s, 70s or something. It was a used book before my time, but it was a channeled book by Seth. This woman, Jane Roberts, had channeled this whole Seth material. And Seth was amazing, wrote these like really incredible books. And so I had this book on dreams and I just loved Seth. I was like, oh my gosh, who is this? Like, I wanted Seth. And this kind of pushed me to, I got all of, I tracked down all the Seth books and read them all. And it was just like insatiable. Like wow, there's so much more to the universe and to consciousness than I realized. And so then I was like, well, I want a Seth. Like if Jane Roberts can have this wise, loving being who, answers her questions and unlocks the secrets of the universe, like, do we all have that? Can we all connect to that? And so then I was reading like, well, how did Jane Roberts connect to Seth? And it was through the Ouija board, actually. Okay. I know. I'm not recommending that for anyone, but that was the pathway that I went and I got a Ouija board.
That's what started you.
Yeah. And eventually that led to me connecting to my own spirit guide, whose name is Will. And that's in the book that you read by me. It has a lot of messages from Will.
Yeah, little messages at the end of the chapters. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. And so that was kind of, this big moment of opening to, well, I started on the Ouija board, but then actually Will really didn't want me to keep trying to connect to him on the Ouija board, really guided me that I needed to learn how to meditate because Will and this other guide, Fanny, they were bringing their consciousness down to meet me here to communicate through the board. And they were telling me I need to raise my consciousness up to the level where they're at to meet them.
Yes. So that you could be doing meditation.
Yes.
So you just said, I'm curious. So you just slipped in that you were raised atheist.
Mm-hmm.
So atheist is basically you do not believe in, or did not believe in God, the universe, angels, that is it basically is it nothing? What do atheists think happens when we die?
I do remember this, like that we get, your body decomposes and you become nothing. And I remember that as a child. I remember there was a period of time, and I'm a great sleeper, but as a child, I remember I went through a period of time where I had insomnia because I would just lay awake at night. Like, how can I just cease to exist? It was unfathomable, but also the idea of God in terms of the way that Christians that I knew would describe it also didn't make sense to me. So it seemed like there's only these two options, right? If it's like either there's no God or there's that God, the judging, hell, brimfire, like that didn't make sense. And so
the scary part.
Yeah. But really, like my family just never really talked about it. It was just nothing. But there was some point where I asked, what happens when we die?
Nothing. It's science. You decay or whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this book that your boyfriend gave you, that triggered you to start thinking more like beyond? Was that when you started thinking beyond atheism?
Yeah, it was really a number of things, but if you're wanting to kind of pinpoint something, but of course there's lots of, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on underneath the surface before the seed sprouts up and it's visible, right?
Yes.
And so, I mean, and I mentioned this in the book and as well, and I don't feel I'm comfortable talking about like that. In college, I was waitressing and I got a job at like an underground club that had after hours where, after they stopped serving alcohol at 2 and then we reopen at 2:30 and have all these DJs. And that's where I got into doing some psychedelics. And I definitely think that opened the
started
door.
opening your mind more.
Yeah. And so and it was just like the coolest job too. I loved it. And, on the weekends. So even when I got my corporate job and I didn't need to work the other job, but I loved, it was kind of like community of misfits, like all the people that, like that don't fit in the regular society, would come to the after hours where you could feel, accepted. And, because it was a lot of, for me, it was a lot of, what was called ecstasy at that time, MDMA, which really is very interesting as far as it opens you to the sense of oneness. And, because I guess originally when they were developing it, they were calling it empathy. And I do feel like there was that feeling. So there was definitely a trigger from that, because when I had that experience, it felt like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be, where like we all love each other.
Yeah.
And when I was on it, and also I guess the government at one point had like experimented with utilizing it as a truth serum.
Okay.
Because it also, when you're on it, just imagine if your heart is so open and you're just loving and accepting, then there's no reason to lie. Everything you just, right? You just love and accept yourself. And so you're just going to tell the truth. And that's how it is, on this, psychedelic. And so, yeah, there was this feeling of like, yes, this is how it's supposed to be. Just we all love and accept and everybody's beautiful and we're all different and it's okay. So this like oneness and empathy. So there was that experience along with, this book coming in. It all the universe starts to align when it's time. Yeah. Whenever your soul has chosen that, or whenever your personality chooses to align with your soul, boom, it all kind of comes together.
So you have been on your journey for quite some time now.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of my episodes and different things, I keep telling people, we got to do the work. We got to do the work.
Yes.
And I've had questions, even people like, what exactly are you saying? So I want to just start because with shadow work, we've talked about, I've said like shadow work, doing the work. So I want to just get more into it so people really understand what we mean when we say we have to do the work. Mm-hmm. Because like even in your book, what did it say? It talked about, the good vibes only.
Yeah.
Doesn't really work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't start your spiritual journey and be like, you know what, I'm just going to be happy all the time. And I'm just going to be just high vibes. No, we have to start digging in first. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or we're just kind of pretending. I don't know. Yeah. So tell us, what is shadow work? Mm-hmm. Just to start with. Like, what do we mean when we say shadow work?
I want to set it up first with kind of like some of the ideas that I think will help is first that we're all part of the oneness. We're all both human, we're both divine and we're human. And so we're perfectly imperfect or imperfectly perfect, whatever way you want to look at it. So intentionally, our human aspect is imperfect because we come here to learn and grow. So this is kind of where I'm coming from with it. And sure, other people might have different perspective, but I want to set the stage with that. And so our divine self is perfect and our human self is imperfect. And we come in different levels of remembering that we're divine or not remembering that we're divine. And then we come in to learn and grow our human self through trial and error, making mistakes, and mistakes are okay because we can learn and grow and so forth. So we're all little pieces of the oneness in unique expression. And I think that's important to kind of set the stage. And so the idea of we're everything and we're nothing at the same time, the alpha and the omega, is important as well. So if we look at each lifetime, so also coming from an idea that we reincarnate, that everything that we could learn we couldn't possibly learn it all in one lifetime, right? And how unfair would that be? We only get one shot and it takes us so many years just to even.
Yeah, no, I need a lot of practice on stuff.
Yeah.
No, I need a lot of practice.
Yeah.
And so, because what you're essentially saying is we have a little piece of God, source, whatever you call it out there, everybody. I say God. So we have a little piece of God in us. And so does everybody else.
Yes.
Whether we like them or not.
Yes.
They have a little piece of God in there. Okay.
Yes. And that's important to start with. Because then when we talk about the shadow, so like in each lifetime, and, we've had many, many lifetimes, that's where I'm coming from. So each lifetime we get a chance to, be a different expression or a different aspect, or to continue on from the one that we were before. And so all of these different archetypes, they're all just like little fractals or pieces of the one, right?
Yes.
And so it's intentional that we want to specifically focus on being, certain things to have an idea or experience of that, right?
Yes.
So going from the oneness, for the oneness to really know itself, it has to forget that it's everything and experience being certain specific things, right? Because if you're everything, you're just the blob.
Right. Because if we knew it all, we'd have nothing to learn. Yeah. If we came here remembering everything we learned, I mean, why would we be back? Yeah.
Right. And so we come from the oneness, and then we incarnate here where there's duality. And that's intentional. The system has duality so that we can experience through contrast.
Okay. Yes.
And so we have to accept all of that first in order to do the shadow work. So these are all the premises that accepting.
Okay. So we have accepted all of those things, and now we're ready to do the work.
Yeah. And so, I'm wanting to know, who am I? Right. And I could say, certain qualities or certain archetypes of who I am, and which is wonderful. However, all that I don't own. So the shadow is our disowned aspects of self. Like if the oneness is this whole pie, this whole circle, and like in this lifetime, I'm this slice of the pie.
Yeah.
And then all that I'm not choosing to embody and express, I need to acknowledge that it's still part of me, even though it might be unexpressed in this lifetime.
Okay.
When we accept that and own that, so then we can step into our whole power. And so also, if we don't accept aspects of ourself, which we generally don't, because society teaches us these are good and these are bad. So we're constantly getting the message like, be a winner, don't be a loser, or, be smart, don't be stupid, right? All of these,
right.
Oh my God, I don't want to be stupid. Stupid is bad. A loser is bad. And then what happens is when we rigidly attach to being certain things, then we polarize on one side. When we polarize, what you resist persists. So if I don't own something within myself and I'm pushing it down, I'm not stupid. I'm not stupid. I'm smart. I'm smart. And I'm like so afraid to be stupid. It's still there in my energy. In fact, the more that I resist it, it becomes like a powerful magnet. And so I will attract people and experiences of that polarity, because everything is this polarity. And so what we disown within ourselves, we will project on others. And that's the problem. And so shadow work is like so important right now, because we're more and more polarized. Everyone can see it. And then here in the US, we've got this big election. It's so polarized, right?
Oh gosh.
Anytime you think like anytime there's a us versus them, or you can look at the wars that are happening on the planet right now, and everybody's taking sides. If you ever think like, oh, they're the bad guys and we're the good guys, there's a lot of shadow work to be done. If you can't see,
because they're over there thinking that they're the good guys and we're the bad guys. And essentially we're all bad and good.
Exactly. We're all pieces of the one. So anytime, and it doesn't matter what anybody else, like shadow work is about just focusing within ourselves and owning all of these aspects of ourself, so that then we're free. If we think of any quality, think of it more of like an outfit that you choose to wear today,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
today I could choose to wear bright colors, or today I might wear all black, or today I might wear white, or tomorrow, whatever. If we're not attached to any aspect, then we're truly free, because really different qualities or any polarity can have the right use of that expression or a not so good use of that expression. Let's say
Yes.
being assertive. Everything is a spectrum. So assertive generally has a positive connotation, right?
Right.
But also on that spectrum, you could have aggressive. Now it doesn't have such a positive, right? But it's really just a shade, right? Where does assertiveness become aggressive, right?
Aggressive.
Everybody will have a different opinion.
Yeah. Because assertive women can be labeled as bitches. You know what I mean? And we think, no, I'm just asserting myself, but it gets read differently by other people sometimes.
And some situations you need assertiveness, right? If somebody is imposing themselves on you and it's, your safety situation or your freedom situation, you need to assert.
Yeah, you got to be assertive.
And there are situations where it's not in the highest and best for everyone to be assertive. And we need to step back and listen to others and be quiet and harmonize with others. It's not a good or a bad quality. It all depends, in the situation. So to have the ability when needed to be assertive is good. And to have the ability when needed to step back and listen. And, it's also good, right?
Because in your book, you have a Carl Jung quote and it says, basically, he says the shadow is everything a person refuses to acknowledge about themselves. So we keep a lot of our qualities in the shadows because we don't want to even acknowledge we're like that ever, even though we are. And then another thing you put in there, and this would be the benefit of doing this work, one of the greatest gifts of reclaiming your shadow is freedom of judgment from ourselves and others. I loved that because I feel, and I talk about like just bringing things into the light, taking things out of the shadow into the light. And it really it doesn't have the power anymore. It doesn't have power over you anymore. Just like if we say something about ourselves to someone, a bad quality, like I've been very rude, or we say whatever, other people can't really judge us and say that anymore because I've already said it about myself. So it's like, if you're going to say that about me, guess what? I've already said it. Like, bring something new to the conversation. You know what I mean? It doesn't hold water anymore. So I love that by doing our shadow work and bringing it, because it's really us. Shadow work is us. We're digging in to find the things we might not like about ourselves. And then, is that kind of what it is? And make ourselves aware of it?
Yeah. I mean, well, also, so it is that. And beyond that step beyond that is like, I am all of that and I'm none of that. Right. So even what you like, if instead of when I say like, oh, I'm very rude. So it is true. Like I can say I'm very rude, but then like the next step would be actually like, I was acting rude, right? Because I like intrinsically the I is not really rude. So when we separate that,
I'm not rude. I just acted rude.
Right.
Yeah.
The same way, like when we say like, I am happy or I am angry, or we could say, I feel happy, I feel angry. The I beyond that is like our divine self, the I am, is we can express or be any of that in any moment, but it's also not who we are.
No, because it doesn't make it okay for you to be rude or whatever. You're identifying it and you're saying, now that I know I act that way sometimes, I'm not rude. I act that way sometimes, and now I'm going to change that. I'm going to work hard not to act that way anymore because that's not me. That's not my true self.
Because so it's interesting because it's both. I think the first level of it would be to do all the I ams, to claim anything. I'm a bitch. Can I say I'm a bitch and just own that? Sometimes I'm a bitch, and get comfortable with that. That's the first level, is to any of that, right? I'm mean, I'm thoughtless, or any of these things. If I can own all of that, then and accept all of that, it frees me. But then the next level is actually that I'm none of that also. Yeah. So the higher level, because my human self can be those things, right?
Right.
But my divine self is not
cannot be
actually
any of that.
any of those
Yeah.
things. But I think the first level, and this is the first level, is really on the human psychological level. This is, when we talk about doing our inner work, because on the spiritual journey, first, a lot of times we connect to our higher self, soul,
Yes.
higher consciousness, whatever term you want to say. And we go, oh my gosh, this is who I am, which it is true.
Yeah.
However, we are also the human self in this experience. We chose as a divine self to come into the human self. And it's about how do we balance and integrate being both human and divine.
Yes.
So it's like, I'm all of these things and I'm none of these things. And I have to hold them both and be able to integrate them, because, going back to the good vibes only thing, is that we can do what's called spiritual bypassing, where people don't accept their natural human emotions and human experiences. And they're like, oh, this person hurt me, but namaste, just trying to.
Yeah, I have met people like this because they appear to have jumped from their day-to-day life to, all of a sudden they're a yoga guru, they're love and light and the good vibes only t-shirts. And they've very quickly, that shouldn't happen that quick. You have a lot of work to do in between that, don't you think? Because some people are they've bypassed, like you said, spiritual bypass. They've just hopped straight to, I am one, I am love and light, and I'm just perfect. And they forgot to do the work.
I don't want to put a time frame, because maybe this person is an evolved being and they just woke up. However, I think you can feel people who are real and authentic.
Yes.
And you can feel people who are kind of they feel not like a whole person. You can feel the grounded people who can accept.
Yes, you can feel their energy.
Yeah, you can feel in their energy, in their words, when people are not accepting the dark, the imperfect within themselves and within others. That shows kind of where they're at on their path. And I think there's a lot of that, and there's going to be a lot more of that, because we are in a time where the shift it's speeding up. And then with a lot of things like plant medicine becoming very popular, it kind of forces a acceleration, which in some ways are great, but in other ways, people aren't necessarily always doing the integration work, which shadow work and inner child work. These are the integration work types of things. We have to have deep roots. If the tree wants to keep growing, it has to have a deep root system. And so we have to go into the earthly aspects and honor and accept that in order to keep growing spiritually. Otherwise, again, if we have so when people just jump ahead and they do spiritual bypassing, and then they have a big shadow that they're not accepting, they're like, only love and light, only love and light.
Right.
Then again, that's when, if this is all suppressed, then it tends to pop up, because it's an energy. It's going to pop up in ways that the person isn't able to see or willing to see. That can be very destructive. So if you can look at that in Catholic Church, and if they're forced to be celibate and they haven't, owned and integrated that they have sexual urges, then that energy gets distorted and it comes out in a bad way. You can see that with different gurus, over time, that blocked or suppressed certain natural human aspects versus integrating and balancing it. And so then that energy gets big and distorted, and it comes out in some other, not healthy way.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So basically, shadow work, and I don't want to say in a nutshell because it's hard to put it in a nutshell, but is us looking at the parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily want to or like about ourselves. Looking at it, bringing it into the light, and saying, like you said, this is me and it's not me. This is the way I've acted. This is the way I have the potential to act. And I'm not those things either, right? Because I do have a piece of God inside of me, and I have the ability to not be those things also.
Yeah. And so for people that might have a hard time with seeing those things, there's a couple not easy, but easier ways maybe to get started with it. One would be, especially now with all the how polarized everything is, you could look at maybe famous people, that might be politicians, that might be celebrities, who gets under your skin, who really like,
Yeah.
I really don't like that. So and then find that person, and then like, what is it about that person that really gets under my skin, and write those qualities down. Maybe like, oh, they're an egomaniac, or, oh, they're controlling, or, oh, they're vapid, or whatever. And then try to own that. And again, think of it as a spectrum. So like the most difficult one would be like a murderer, right? Like,
Right. Oh, yeah.
I am somebody who doesn't even kill insects. I capture them and bring them outside because I feel really bad.
Yeah. So you can't imagine what the serial killers are doing out there.
Right. It'd be
No.
hard to own, like, I am a murderer, right? And yet, if we think of it as a spectrum, so I can't imagine murdering somebody. Who knows? Maybe if it was like self-defense in this life, I don't even know if I could do that. But let's say maybe I could. I don't know.
Okay.
But like on that spectrum of really angry, or really, have you ever been cut off on the freeway, or somebody did something very dangerous and felt really upset in the moment and felt like, oh, or haven't we all at some point said, I could kill that person, right? Is it an expression?
Yeah. We all have like anger in there for sure.
But there's an energy there. And then even maybe that one's a really hard one, but like another way you can do it is to think of like, well, if I were born in that situation, so like I was raised with loving parents and I'm very, blessed and thankful for that. But let's say if I was raised with, abusive parents, and it was harm or be harmed, and that was all I ever saw and all I ever knew, and I never experienced love, and it was the survival instinct of harm or be harmed, could I be harmful? Yeah, probably, right? Like, that's the thing, is like being able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, which is why I love, one of the things that I do, past life regression, is really cool in that way, because we go into other lifetimes where we were that person and where we were different people, and we get to see through different lenses. Whereas in this life, I've always seen through the Tiana lens. And so but like to have the experience of being in a different body with a different perspective. And it's very helpful for kind of broadening, like, oh, I could be totally different if I wasn't raised in this situation with all that I have now. And so that's very helpful. Another thing that you could do if you have trouble with the shadow work of thinking of what is disowned is make a list of all the qualities that you appreciate about yourself. This could be hard for people too, but like, let's just say, or things that you like about yourself, like if somebody, again, it could be like, oh, I'm smart, or I'm cheerful, or I'm kind. And then make 2 columns. Whatever you own, like I'm smart. What's the opposite? Stupid. I'm kind.
What you're saying is we need to kind of make a pros and cons list of ourselves, our qualities.
Yeah, you could call it that. Yeah, if it'll help for people who have a hard time seeing the shadow aspects, then you could just, again, make a list of the things. If you have a hard time seeing the shadow, then look at the things that you like, and then just come up with what's the opposite. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm loving, then I'm unloving. I'm kind.
Yeah. And then look at that list.
And that's your shadow. Exactly.
Which of these feel like they resonate with me? Or are you saying we all have all of that going on?
We have all of that. It doesn't mean that we are embodying, expressing all of that in this lifetime, but we want to make peace with, we have the capacity to be all of that. Then we're not attached to, like, like the white knight syndrome. There's that one's like specifically for men, but also women do this too, like where you attract the wounded bird or the person that needs saving. A lot of people do this in relationships because they're so attached to being the savior, because it feels good to be the helper or the savior.
Yes.
That if we polarize on that side, then you're going to keep attracting the one who needs to be saved. But if we could also own our vulnerability and our imperfections and so forth, then we don't have to be so attached to being the savior. And then we don't have to attract those that need to be saved. Anytime we attach to one end, then we're going to keep attracting the opposite, or situations that bring the opposite out within us. So just by doing the shadow work and owning both sides of every polarity, we become free that in our life, we can choose in any situation, what do I want to express?
Yes.
Yes. It's very freeing and allows us to, just like being the observer, basically, and recognizing in any situation, I can't remember, I read this in one book, but this example of like, if we're sitting in a room together, you, me, and another person, and someone comes in and slaps each of us and then leaves the room. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I start crying. Like, I'm crying. I'm sad because they slapped me. And you get mad. You're like, I'm angry because yeah. And the other person starts laughing. They're like, I'm laughing because they slapped me. And we all are saying because of this external event, but the external event, the catalyst really just stirred up what was inside of ourselves. So that's life. We're constantly.
Yeah. We all react to things differently.
We're reacting based on what's within us. So when we heal what's within us by bringing it to the light and owning and accepting, then in each moment, if somebody comes in and slaps me, I can have the choice to notice what comes up and to choose how I want to feel.
Yeah, to choose how I'm going to react to that.
It's very empowering.
Okay. So that's shadow work, is digging into ourselves. And then also another part of doing the work that we talk about is working on healing our inner child. Okay. So when we say inner child, what do we mean?
So the way that I'm using it, and different people use it differently. So yeah, the way I'm using it is that the inner child is a sub-personality aspect of ourself. It's our emotional self. And we think of it as a child because it helps us to show up for that part of ourself with empathy and compassion. And in fact, I would recommend do inner child work before you do shadow work.
Oh, okay.
Because not everybody's ready to look at their shadow. Like if you don't have nurturing love for yourself, if you have a hard time nurturing and loving yourself, then doing shadow work, you could just judge yourself and feel really bad.
Yeah.
You need to be able to have that empathy and love and compassion.
Okay. So we need to prop up our inner child first.
I would recommend that.
Okay.
Yeah. Shadow work's going to be easier for you if you have your own inner nurturing first.
And is inner child technically like us as a child? Like it has to do with our childhood or not at all?
It has to do with our childhood, but I don't limit to, so it's not only because of, it's not going back. So a lot of times, this is the way that I work with the inner child. It's not just, a lot of times people are like thinking like it's going back to your childhood.
Okay.
Right. But really like, again, like I see your inner child is your emotional self.
Okay.
So you incarnated as a soul, you weren't a blank slate. So who you are now is partly influenced by your experiences, especially your childhood experiences, but you actually already came in as someone. You came in as a soul who's had many. So it's not, your inner child isn't only colored by your childhood experiences. You already came in having a certain kind of qualities and beings.
Past experiences that we brought in.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's things that happened to us in our childhood and things that are just inside the emotions we're carrying from
your emotional self.
Our emotional self. Okay.
If you think of your emotional self as this child, inner child work is really, it's really how we show up for our emotional self.
Okay.
And this is shadow work and inner child work. If everybody on the planet could just do these two things, then like most of our problems would be solved.
Yep. We could solve it all. Okay. So how do we get started on healing our inner child? Like, are there first steps or?
I think first steps could be just to start to have mindfulness during your day of when emotions come up.
Okay.
And that could be a mild emotion like irritation. Like, again, let's just use traffic as an example, or your printer's not working, or you had to call something and you get the automated whatever, or you're in a long line. There's just so many little things, right? Or you're stressed or you're annoyed or whatever. Just notice when an emotion comes up and imagine that the one that's feeling that emotion is your inner child. Okay. So if there is like, let's say I'm irritated from one of those things I just mentioned. And then when I notice I'm irritated, just inwardly imagine there's this for me, it'd be a little girl who's irritated. And I'd inwardly want to acknowledge like, hey, I notice you're irritated, and feel empathy and compassion. I'm so sorry you're going through that right now. And I like to just imagine giving my inner child a hug and just loving and accepting her emotions. This is how we process emotions, is just to acknowledge and love and accept them. You know, there's a therapeutic term called holding space.
Yes.
What does the therapist do? They just hold space, which means they show up, they listen, they honor and accept whatever's there with love and compassion, or with empathy and compassion. So this is what we want to do for our inner child, is just start to hold space for it.
Yes. Like we would for a real child if they were going through that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. But when there's an adult, we often, and this is what we do to ourselves, is we judge it like, oh, you shouldn't be feeling that right now.
Yeah. Grow up. What are you doing? Why you're not allowed to feel that way, when really we have to stop and just hold space and say, okay, they feel that way. I'm acknowledging it. I'm not saying you're right or you're wrong. I'm just saying, I get that you feel that way. And I'm just going to be here for you.
Just in that, a percentage of that charge of whatever the emotion is will dissipate. Now, if it's like a big emotion, like anger is a very active emotion. A lot of times, a good starting place with big emotions is to move them physically out of your body in a constructive way.
Okay.
Right. So like destructive would be slapping somebody, like I said.
We're really upset with our partner. Let's just use that for an example. We're really upset with our partner. And so what do you recommend we do?
Right. I think until we can be at a better place with our emotions, it's probably better to be like, I'm feeling really upset right now. I need to go have some time to myself.
Yeah.
Later, when we get better with our emotions, we can handle it different. But I think in the beginning, it's good to separate yourself and scream in a pillow if you need to, punch a punching bag if it's a big energy.
Okay, so basically, just take a time out, remove yourself from the situation,
and physically move it out of your body.
Okay.
Is a good start, because those emotions tend to be so overwhelming that they want to move, and they come out in saying a harmful thing to somebody. So I would let that energy dissipate first. Anger, different than sadness, cry it out, let it cry. But other emotions that are not as big, you could start by what I was saying before, where you can notice that's your inner child. But like, let's say it's anger again, like first move some of that energy out, like I said, in a constructive way to your physical body. And then when it's not at 10 and it's at a 7 or something, then you could show up for your inner child and be like, hey, I notice you're angry. I'm sorry. I know this is really hard for you. I'm here for you. That kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's the same. The inner child work always is like honoring and accepting what's there.
Okay.
Letting it move through in a constructive way. Also, if you don't know what to do with it, write it down. You could write really nasty things that, Yeah,
journal it and burn it later or something. Yeah.
Exactly. You don't want to stuff it.
Yeah.
When we stuff that's a big energy that shows up. And this is like what I see all the time in my hypnotherapy practice is those energies, they become blocks in our energetic system. They create physical issues.
Yeah.
Or that big energy comes out in someone's biting their nails, or suddenly has a phobia driving in the freeway. It's a big energy that will get distorted and come out in a weird way.
Okay.
In a way that might not even be related to what happened, but it's a big energy that needs to move. So if we can have healthy, constructive ways to process and move that energy.
Yes, so that we don't store it in our own bodies.
Yeah, so we don't store it in our own bodies, and we don't harm others.
And we don't want to harm others.
So that's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we're healing our inner child. It's us visualizing like our emotions are this child, and how would we care for that child? Okay.
Just because you said the word visualizing, and I know for myself that I have a really hard time visualizing.
Okay.
So I want to say imagining, which for a lot of people will be visualizing that's their inner child, but you don't have to see this child. You might sense or feel or perceive it inwardly in whatever way. It doesn't have to be visual.
And it might even help you to pick an age that you can kind of imagine or visualize you were like, okay, I remember what I looked like when I was 5 in that picture. Maybe I'll think of that child, right? Okay. So we're doing that. And then also, but if we do have childhood trauma, that's part of the work too, right? That kind of falls in with all of this work, just kind of pulling old memories out. Would you say there's a best way to go about that, or?
Yeah, you can do it on your own. If you do it on your own, I would say like find a guided meditation or hypnosis that's specific for that and let something guide you through the steps.
Yes.
Because especially with like a childhood trauma, because that energy is really, people can get really sucked into being that child. See, really, we're both the adult now and the child. It's the same how we're both divine and human. So much of our work is integrating these different aspects and acknowledging both. But finally, the soul is beyond both.
Yeah.
But we've come into the human experience to experience all these different archetypes, to experience these different sub-personalities and honor them and accept them. And at the same time, we're transcending them and we're integrating them. And so that's the challenge is like,
I know, so much challenge. It is challenging. Yeah, no, this isn't easy stuff we're talking about, you guys. But this is the work that gets you along your spiritual path to all of the really good stuff too.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, because our inner child is not just the one that's traumatized or the one that's angry or has negative emotions. Our inner child is the part that has the excitement, the aliveness, the passion for being alive. So when we shut all of the not good stuff out, we're also shutting all of the beautiful, amazing things, the passion for the human experience out, so that so many people get very numb because they've tried to shut off the bad, but they also end up shutting off the good. And they just kind of
the good. And then you don't have that wonder that children have, the curiosity and the imagination and all the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I want to talk about one more thing. When I talk about doing the work, we also talk about, and you have a section in your book about this, about forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness is a tough one. In my opinion, in my personal experience, forgiveness is tough.
Mm-hmm.
And so, first of all, the benefits, there are benefits to forgiveness. And like you said in your book, the benefit is not for others. The benefit is for us.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of, how you go over it in your book a little bit about how it's for us?
Yeah. So, forgiveness frees us. Anything that we're holding, resentment towards or bitterness towards, there's that expression that, so forgiveness frees us because we're carrying the poison that's meant for our enemies. That's the whole idea about, we're like holding on to something because we don't want to let it go the way that something wronged us, because we think that we're somehow like holding the other person accountable. But they've gone on and they're doing
they don't actually care.
Yeah.
No.
And all that's it's just this pain that we're carrying in ourselves that we're thinking is meant for the other, but is really just harming ourselves or blocking ourselves from freedom, from love.
Yes.
And so, and the thing that I've seen a lot of times, if we go talking about reincarnation and karma, is a lot of times people think that that's how they get their justice, is like, if I let this go, then the person gets off scot-free. But that's not how energy and the universe works. The universe is fair, even though we might not see it in this. One, we might not see it in this lifetime. Two, we might not see it that somebody might look like they're, living their best life, but you don't know the pain and the torment that's going on within them.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Whenever, let's say, you and I, no, let's not say you and I. Let's say other two random, person A and person B, got in a disagreement and each feels the other person wronged them or whatever. And person B is still carrying it within themselves and upset about it. And person B feels like if I let it go, then person A gets off scot-free, right? But really, like if person B lets go their half of the equation and forgives and makes peace with it, and person A doesn't, then person A is still carrying that in their energy system. They will continue to attract and manifest from that energy situations where they have to keep working through that energy until they heal and release it. but they just won't do it with person B anymore. If person B heals it within themselves through forgiveness, now they don't have to attract those same situations over and over again.
Right. And forgiveness doesn't mean you reunite with that person.
Yeah. Forgiveness doesn't have anything to do with the other person, actually.
If you forgive someone, it doesn't mean, okay, we're going to rekindle our whole relationship in that. No, it just means I'm releasing that so that I can move on. Right.
Yes.
And the other person, if they're going to hold on to it, that's on them. I can't make them let go. I can only control myself.
Correct. So forgiveness goes hand in hand with shadow work, really, because how can we get to a point of forgiving, right? So if somebody really harmed me in this life and I am very careful to not do any harm, and it can look like, oh, I'm the good person and they're the bad person. How could I forgive? I would never do that. But if we go back to shadow work, is that I have the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
And then if we broaden it and look at it as through reincarnation, I have been that.
Yeah.
I have been the one that harmed in other lifetimes. And so that's why I find it really helpful to go into these other past lives where we start to see like, oh, I haven't always been innocent, sweet. So if we can accept that in our premise that, oh, I've been that before, and that even because I know even for myself, along my journey, there's been times when I really, really came in with a strong intention to do good. And then someone projected something on me and just made me the bad person. And I felt really hurt because I knew how much I had been focusing on having the highest intention.
Yeah, you had the best intentions going into it. And then things didn't happen like we planned.
And then it looked really unfair to me. It just was like, how can they, how can they see me that way and treat me that way when I tried so hard? But then the way I was able to move beyond that was like, well, who knows? Maybe I wronged them in a past life. It's like, to me, it's very freeing to be like, oh, in some, who knows that that's not the repercussion or the other side of that.
Yeah, maybe this was just karma coming for me.
And then that I could be that. And that, so again, it's shadow work is like seeing like, oh, maybe that I magnetize that because that's been in my energy unmanifest. And so if we can see ourselves in everyone and everyone in ourselves, then it frees us from polarizing in right and wrong and good and bad, that we're all here to learn and grow. And again, it doesn't mean that, okay, then that means that we can just do harm, because there will be repercussions. There's consequences for every action or whatever.
Sure.
But, across lifetimes, we are learning and growing. And so on a spiritual level, it's okay. It'll all right itself. I just need to focus on myself and what am I learning and how can I grow right now and do the best that I can and have compassion and empathy. So going back to forgiveness work, one of the books that I recommend in my book is called Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping, I think I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. But what's cool about his book is because a lot of times clients will tell me, I know I need to let this go. I know I need to forgive. I know I've been carrying this too long. I just don't know how to get there. I want to forgive, but I can't seem to let it go. What I like about his book, Radical Forgiveness, is he has like an actual step-by-step process. You start here and I'm holding on to this, and he walks you through step by step to get to a place of forgiveness. And especially for people that are like very left-brained, it's like a logical step-by-step process.
Yeah. Analytical people like to have a process that they can follow to get there. So that's good. That's a good suggestion.
So that's helpful.
Yeah. And because you're kind of just reframing things too. Sometimes I don't call it forgiving someone. I reframed it. I reframed what happened into a more positive light. Okay. And you had this in your book. I'm going to read this because I really liked it. It said, you may even feel a shift in your awareness, recognizing that everyone is just doing the best they can at the level of awareness they're at. So for me, this helps too, because if I can stop and say, kind of, they don't know any better, or you know what I mean? They don't even understand the hurt they're putting out there. They're just not at that level yet. They don't know. Does that sound right? Am I thinking about that right?
Yeah. Just kind of the perspective of like, we don't actually know what level anyone is at.
No, we don't know.
Right.
Sometimes you look at someone though and you're like,
Because again, on the spiritual level, and I've done this before myself too. It's like, also, we don't want to step into like superiority. Like, oh, well, they're obviously just low.
Oh, no, I'm better than them. No, you don't want to go
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. But we really just don't know what level anyone's at. And so like to give them the benefit of the doubt that,
Yeah, give a little grace here and there. Like,
it's that kind of like the whole Christ consciousness thing of like, forgive them. They know not what they do. Right. Like yeah. So kind of assuming the best in people, that they're always just doing the best that they can with where they're at. And again, I think that's why like going into past lives, and even if people haven't gone to past lives, go back in this life and think of yourself at how you were at 15, right. How you were at 25, how you were, like you can like think of like, there were like,
oh geez. Yeah. We've made so many mistakes. Yes. And even our thought patterns change. Like the way I think about things now is so different than the way I thought about things in my 20s.
And and it's okay. Like most of us were pretty selfish, as it's normal for teenagers to be selfish, right? We don't know. That's where we're at that level, and that's okay. And we don't, in the same way, I often tell my clients, like, are you embarrassed that you wore diapers and someone used to clean your bottom for you? Right. And no, everybody was at that level of.
Yes, we all started in the same spot. Mm-hmm.
When we think about that biologically, of course, like our body, we grow and we develop more. We need to look at it the same way psychologically and spiritually.
Yes.
That we all go through a period of not being very developed and not having a lot of control over our thoughts or over our emotions or over our awareness, just like we didn't have that control over our body.
Yes.
We also, so we'll be at different stages, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. We're doing the best at whatever stage that we're at.
Yeah. I can't believe I acted like that. And then, like you said, it's like shadow work. Like you bring it and you're like, I can't believe I acted like that. I don't want to do that again. You know what I mean? But I'm acknowledging I did it, and that's okay. And I'll just forgive myself for all of that. Yeah. And just move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So it can help to do, so it helps to do all of that work for ourself first, right? So the forgiveness work for ourself first, the inner child work. That way, when we are based in love and compassion for ourself, recognizing, oh, I'm not perfect and it's okay. I'm doing the best that I can. Then it's natural that it starts to extend to others.
Perfect.
Yeah.
In your practice, because you do a lot of like hypnosis, helping people work through everything, open up their spiritual connections. So do you see a couple really common blocks people have? That seem common, like blocks that people have when they're trying to start their spiritual awakening, their spiritual journey, things that are blocking them. Are there a couple things that you see quite a bit?
There's a lot of things, but yeah, that's kind of what the book was about. Was I was thinking like, what are the key things that I see over and over again that are so important? So what we mentioned, inner child. So getting comfortable with our emotional self and integrating our emotional self, having a healthy relationship with our emotional self is super important. Being able to see the ugliness or making peace with polarity and being able to dance between the different polarities. This is important. I would say also a big one is to become very grounded and present in your physical body, making peace with being a physical being, because so many of us are living like half in and half out of our body energetically, like wanting to so many people that go on the spiritual path and it's so beautiful out there, right? At the higher realms.
Right.
And so then we're sort of either disassociating and not being fully present in here. Look at the ugly world. It's so ugly here. I see this all the time. I'm on Reddit. I'm on different sort of spiritual subreddits. And there's just a lot of people who are like, this world is trash. I can't wait to get here. There's no way that I chose to be here. This place is ugly and so forth.
Yeah, just like keeping it all negative.
Right. And so, but the more that we're not meant to like try to leave our physical body while we're here. We're meant to bring in more of our soul, more of our higher self embodied. So the more that we ground and do mindfulness and become present, the more that we're bringing our higher consciousness here on earth, then we're creating heaven on earth. So we're not trying to escape.
Okay.
We're through bringing more of our higher self
while we're here. and make others more comfortable too.
Yes, yes. And so it's so important now because, again, like my perspective is that it's speeding up. This big spiritual awakening, the shift is speeding up on the planet right now.
Because like Earth's ascending.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so if we can't get really grounded in our physical body and make peace with being a human being and that we're here, there's a reason why we're here. We chose to be here through like embodiment practices, then we're just going to get knocked all over the place through all the big energies. So we have to, again, have the deep rootedness to be able to anchor in more and more of our higher self. So there's a reason why we all incarnated during this really intense time on the planet.
Because we're all supposed to be able to handle this and help.
We're meant to, yeah, exactly. So the more that we can ground our higher self in our body. So again, like embodiment practices, it could be like mind body practices. So like yoga or any kind of mind body practices. I love ecstatic dance. So dancing, so allowing my authentic self to express through movement, qigong, or things like this. So body-based spiritual practices help to integrate. So we're not leaving our body. Energetic grounding. So I have a section in the book about energy hygiene.
Okay. Yes.
Right. So grounding our energetic system, really learning how to set our aura, which is like our energy house that we're carrying around with us. So becoming a master of our energetic system. I shouldn't say becoming a master because that sounds like so lofty.
No, but just like being aware of like our chakras and trying to open them up more. And then I've talked before about how I set every morning when I kind of visualize my chakras opening, I kind of set like a container around myself, like a bubble, kind of like you said in your aura section, in your book, you know, that keeps the negative out of my space, other negative energy out of my space, and my negative energy to myself.
Yeah, allows you to know what's you and what's not you, and to choose what you allow into your space and what stays out, right? So that kind of work is very important for right now.
Yes. And I bet another block might be, I don't know, clearing out like programming we've been raised with. So that could be religious, that could be, you know, lack of religion,
limiting
religion,
beliefs.
Either way. Yeah.
Right. Wherever those limiting beliefs come from, whether they're from religion or whether they're from the culture or our educational system, there's so many limiting beliefs and sources of that. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, common limiting beliefs would be like, I'm not good enough, you know, or I need to be perfect. That's like a really powerful one that I see over and over again is people trying to be perfect and not thinking they're good enough. Yeah. Or thinking, because society is constantly giving us this, because we live in a consumerism, you know, based society. In order to sell us things, they need to point out all the ways that we're not perfect so that then you'll want to buy something, right? So we're constantly getting that message of how we're not good enough in some way. And there's that, you know, intrinsic belief that like, I need to earn love by being perfect, by being good enough,
right?
Versus I am enough just because I exist. Right. And so the same way that the tree, or, you know, think of anything in nature that just gets its needs met because it exists. And yet we think that like, I have to deserve to get my needs met by being perfect.
Right.
Well, the tree doesn't have to be perfect. It gets to receive, the sun shining for everybody. And it doesn't matter. The sun's shining for the cockroach, the sun's shining for the tree, the sun's shining for us. If we go out and step in the sun, in that, you know, that's how I see spirit or divine love. The divine love is there for everyone, whether it's the cockroach or whether it's the criminal or whatever. Divine love is unconditional love. But we shut ourselves off from divine love by thinking that, you know, we have to
earn it.
I don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't really have to earn it. Like we were all born deserving love. Period. End of story, right? And so if we can start like probably in the end helps us not get treated poorly by others too, once we realize we deserve all the good in the world. Yeah. And so if people aren't giving that to us, maybe that's someone that needs to be off our path. There. Oh my goodness. Okay. So many things. So we can do this work on our own, but I'm going to put it out there. It's real hard to do on your own. It's really hard to do on your own, you guys out there. If you're thinking this sounds simple, it's not. So that's when it's a good time to reach out to others. like Tiana, because you do a lot of hypnosis. So we can
Mm-hmm.
get like, it's just easier to get into our subconscious to connect with our higher self during that, I would assume, because I've had a couple experiences myself. And so it's really nice to have someone guide you through some of these things, right?
Yeah, I think it's both and. Like, it's ideal to be able to do some of your own inner work, right? We're reading
Oh,
these
yeah.
books, we're listening to, well, even listening to a guided meditation is really, it's being, even though it's maybe a recording, it's still being facilitated by somebody else. And it's good to, find trusted practitioners to hold space for you.
Yes.
So I think it's good for both.
Yes, because it's really hard sometimes on our own to just decide we're going to access our past lives. I mean, that's for me, like it's hard for me to do that. Even in like a deep meditation, I may see some things, but it's really nice when someone guides you and helps just kind of facilitate, and like you said, hold the space and kind of guide you to those places.
Yeah, because it's hard to play both roles. Yeah, because even though that's the work that I do, when I want to work on something, I have certain practitioners. I have other hypnotherapists that I go to.
That comes to help you. Yeah, you
For
can't do
sure.
it all.
Yeah, because I don't want to play both roles. It's more helpful to just be one role for sure.
Right. So you do, because you do the hypnosis sessions and you do those both local and remote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a new program, the Awakening Soul program. I saw this on your site. So what's that all about?
Mm-hmm. That is a number of sessions that I do packaged together to guide. Like, I seem to attract a lot of souls that are just awakening on their path, right? And so they're just opening up on their path and they're needing some guidance and some support.
Okay.
And so I've put together, I do what's called a soul plan reading, which it's based on your name at birth. It's sort of the map that your soul came in for this lifetime, both on the physical material aspect. There's challenges, talents, and goals that are on the physical worldly level, and then challenges, talents, and goals on the spiritual level. And it's all in your soul plan that you're meant to apply your talents to overcome your challenges to reach your goals.
Okay.
And so it's all built in there. And then finally, we look at your soul destiny, the energy that you've come to embody and express. So we start off with this soul plan reading, kind of giving them the map, their soul map for this life. And then it includes hypnosis sessions, depending on what the person wants to focus on. So sometimes we're doing inner child work. Sometimes we're doing shadow work. Sometimes we're doing connect with your spirit guides, because everybody has spirit guides. And it's really, really helpful as far as like not doing this work alone, connecting to either your higher self.
Connecting, because then you always have someone to go to.
Yes. So my spirit guide, Will, has been like that for me.
Did he tell you his name was Will, or did you just name him?
No, he told me his name was William, but I can call him Will.
Okay.
Will for short.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't know, because sometimes you'll connect and like maybe they don't care what you call them. I'm just saying, if you start connecting with your spirit guides and they don't give you a name, that's okay, you guys. Like
Yes, that's common.
Yeah.
That's common, because I guide people. I have these spiritual regression sessions, quantum healing hypnosis technique, Life Between Lives, where we might connect with a spirit guide. Yeah. Half the time, that's what they say. They're like, I don't care. Call me Bob, whatever. Yeah. Okay. So but Will told me my name is William, but you can call me Will. So he did, but yeah.
Oh, well, how nice was he? He introduced himself really nice. Yeah.
He's fun and playful. Yeah. So we do some hypnosis session. We do chakra balancing and energy healing session, where I kind of go in and check in on their chakras, and then also kind of give them some suggestions based on which chakras are wanting to be focused on. And then we do either a past life regression or a quantum healing hypnosis technique. So all of this is part of a package that people can do at their own pace. So some people are like, boom, they want to go in and intensely in very short period of time doing a lot of intensive work. And then I've had other people that like might stretch it out over a year because they might do one of the sessions and then they need time to really sit with and process and integrate what we just went through.
And so if someone's not sure what they need to book with you, either they could do probably a free consultation, or is there one session where you commonly recommend, if you're not really sure, do this one first? Is there one that's always a great starter session?
No, I think it really is case by case. I think like if someone's not sure, then I offer a free 15-minute either phone or Zoom consultation. You can go to my website and click on booking and it drops down and you can click on free consultation. Definitely do that. And to make sure we're a good fit,
Yeah.
talk to me and make sure we're a good fit.
Yeah, I tell everybody all the time, like, just go with your intuition. If it feels like the right fit to, for this person to help you, then they're probably a good fit.
Yeah. People will say like, oh, I'll ask them, what is it that you're wanting to get out of working with me? Or what's your intention right now? And then based on what they say, I can say like, oh, you might want to start with this, or you might want to start with that. So it is, we're all individual, unique beings.
Yes.
So it's not a one size fits all at all.
Okay. So you can get guidance on which session's the best one to start with.
Yeah, definitely. If you're not sure, then
yeah, because if you do
that
one session and you really get a lot out of it, then okay, maybe I want that whole package. Maybe I want to get guided through the whole process, because you can do this remote too, right? They don't just have to be near you. Because with all the technology now, we can do these things through our computer screens. It's amazing.
Yeah, everything that I offer, as long as somebody has a good internet connection and a quiet space, it can all be done virtually. And like this year, I've really noticed a shift of a lot more virtual, like 50-50. Like a lot of my clients are doing everything virtual now. And so,
yes, because now we can find people all over the world. Really?
Yeah,
we're not limited to our own local town. Yeah.
Right. Or even in Austin, we have bad traffic and I'm located south, and people who are north, they're like, I don't want to waste, an hour here. And
it's just easier to sit in our own bedroom or living room and work through the shadow work. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we want to just be home for these.
Right.
Things.
They'll do the session like laying in their bed in their pajamas. I mean, how nice is that?
Yeah. It's just comfy and you're doing the work, but you didn't have to do the work of getting ready. Yep. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Because you don't care how people show up on the screen, right? Like, be comfy.
Right.
This isn't like a job interview. No, you guys can just log on comfortably. Yes.
Yeah. So it's really, because so much of it, so like hypnosis is just listening to my voice anyway.
Right.
So even if you were to come in my office, you're going to close your eyes and you're going to listen to my voice.
Yeah.
So that can happen.
Yeah, that can happen because it's all about the vibrations we feel from each other's voices anyway. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Energy is not constrained by time or space. So energy healing can also happen virtually. None of it has to be in person at all.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And you guys did, and also don't forget, she is the co-host of a podcast too called Beyond the Illusion. So check that one out because you guys get real woo-woo-y in yours. I love it.
Yes, I'm really woo-woo.
And I love it. Yeah. So it's just fun to hear about all these new things that you guys go over in it. So that's a fun one too. I have all of her stuff in the show notes, the links to her website. She's got all kinds of stuff going on. She's low-key writing book number 2. We don't know when that's coming out, but it's coming. It's going to be coming. Yeah. So she's working on new things, but I do recommend, obviously I recommend her book because I've already gifted it to lots of people. It's a great starting point for your journey. Like I said, it's not a huge book and it's easy to read and easy to understand. And even if every section you read doesn't hit right now, it might later. It's just a good place to start opening your mind to what the heck we're all talking about out here. Because there's even just terms and stuff that I didn't understand at the beginning, shadow work, all these things. So it's nice to have a book that you can just kind of get the basics of what everyone's talking about. And then you can dive deeper in, right? Because there's probably whole books on shadow work. There's probably a whole.
Exactly. There are.
I mean, but that's what I like about this. It's a lighter reading, so it doesn't feel too heavy or too overwhelming, this whole process. You can get a nice start on your awakening and then expand out in the areas that feel right to you. Like that's part of your path. You know what I mean? So so we love the book, and an hour is not enough with Miss Tiana because she knows so many things. But I hope that helped everybody start understanding what the work everyone's always talking about is, the work we have to do, because you can't just hop from like being unawakened to starting to awaken and it's all just happy and joyous. There's a little work. There's a little work in there before you get to that really great point, but it's all worth it.
Well, and it can still like, I mean, what my next book was going to be was going to be The Dark Awakening. It's still, that's a book that I'm going to write, but it was about my like big spiritual awakening. Number 2 was a dark night of the soul that happened when my Kundalini activated. But I tried to write that book last year and it was still really heavy. I wasn't ready to edit. So I know it's going to happen, but that's not going to be the next one. But anyway, I just want to let people know that's a valid experience as well. It's not all butterflies and rainbows, that there's a dark awakening. There's a dark night of the soul. That's important too, because again, we're here in duality. Intentionally, our souls chose to experience both sides of that. So if you do go through, a dark experience of spirituality and awakening to seeing, the pain and the ugliness and the fear and harm and all of the things that happen, that is a valid pathway as well. But ultimately, again, just like with the shadow work, is that we're able to acknowledge both and understand why they exist. And a lot of times, the darkness pushes us to the light. And so there's part of my journey was when I had an ayahuasca experience, which was really, really dark, the one that I had. But finally, it was an understanding of like compassion is the bridge between light and darkness.
Okay.
And so we're not meant to just reject again, love and light, love and light, love and light.
Right.
We're meant to acknowledge there's duality. The contrast helps us to learn and grow. Again, it doesn't mean it's okay to create pain or harm, but there is a reason why it has existed on the planet up until now. And through compassion, we become the oneness, we become the all that is, versus polarizing. And then we have the dark shadow to ourselves.
Yes. So there's no way around it. You have to go through it.
Yes.
We can't get around all this work, you guys. We got to go through it. And that's kind of like what we're here for. It's just like our little human school down here. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very empowering. I really want to point that out because because it was like, oh gosh, that doesn't sound good. I have to do that work. And I get it because I felt like that, but what we want to do is recognize how it empowers us. And then ultimately that gives us freedom. Mm-hmm. So freedom and empowerment are the gifts of doing the work.
Yes.
Because otherwise we're stuck in victim consciousness and that's just so disempowering, right? It's disheartening.
Yeah. No, we don't want to be a victim. We want to flip the script on that whole thing and take all of our power back. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, goodness. Tiana, I love it so much. You guys can learn a lot from her. So you got to get this book. You got to get to her website and start figuring some things out. Thank you so much for being here. I know you have so much more we could talk about. So you're going to have to come back sometime and tell me more things, especially when this new book comes out, because that's going to be exciting
I would love to.
Yes, because we're all waking up here together and we're all going to change things for the better. Yep. That's the plan. That's my plan anyway.
Yeah. We're here to help each other. So when we do our own inner work, because we're all connected, any inner work that you do, any inner healing helps the collective because it's this big tapestry of energy.
Yeah. It just ripples out to everyone else.
Yeah. And then when we can step into embodying our own higher self, then we can turn and have our hand reached out to help others.
Exactly.
And so, yeah.
Gotta help ourselves first, and then we can help all the others. Yes. And just our energy changes. And so even just the people we live with will just feel the difference. You don't even have to do anything but work on yourself, and they will all feel the difference.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing that I learned to not try to, everybody needs this. No, everybody is on their own journey and their own timing.
Everyone's on their own journey. We'll just do our journey, and people that are open to it will start their own journey. And if they're not, that's okay. They're on that path and we're on our path, and it's all good. Yep. I love it. Well, thank you so much. And come back anytime and tell me all the things. I love it.
I would love
hope you guys out there learned something today about this darn work we got to do. We can do it. We got this. We can do this all together. Yeah. We can find people to help us, and we can do our own work, and it's going to work out.
The Aquarian age is about community, so we don't have to do it alone anymore.
Yeah.
We can all get there together and help one another, and then have more fun with it too.
Yes.
It's more fun when we
do
do it
because this can be fun.
So.
It does not have to be hard and deep and sunk in the shadows. We can come out on the other side and have a lot of fun with this. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Listen, I know your time is valuable. And right now, I'm feeling super grateful and totally humbled that you chose to hang out with me today. If this podcast resonates with you, could you do me a solid and hit that subscribe or follow button? That's going to help you out because you're never going to miss an episode. And it helps me out because you're never going to miss an episode. And if you have like 30 seconds more, could you leave a 5-star rating and maybe leave a kick-ass review? Thank you so much, and I can't wait to continue our journey on the next episode. Oh, and I can't forget the fine print. You know, the legal jargon. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We're just two friends on this journey together, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional. You get it. See you next time.